Hi guys and welcome to Fandom Newbie. My name is Shruti and today I'm going to be giving you guys book recommendations for easy fantasy books that even beginners can enjoy. The first book that I want to recommend is Born to be King by Deepak Thomas. Now, this book is an Indian fantasy novel and it is such a fun read. Like, I went into this book with zero expectations and I have to say, I really enjoyed reading this. The characters are just so quirky and fun. The world is a perfect blend of like Indian mythology and fantasy, and the writing is extremely simple, but it is still quite engaging. This book basically follows the journey of a princess named Kautilya. So, unlike her brothers who have been gifted with rare talents, Kautilya finds herself to be quite plain until her family is betrayed. After which, she has to dive headfirst into an adventure where she meets like a gang of misfits and they all join a revolution against the kingdom. This book was a complete page turner. Like, I think I finished it in about 2 sittings. And because of the simple writing style, and also because it has those Indian mythological elements, I feel that this book can be very relatable and something that's really good for beginners of fantasy to pick up. The next book that I want to recommend is The Hobbit by JRR Tolkien. Now, Tolkien is the king of fantasy. Tolkien's works have inspired countless authors to delve into the world of fantasy, especially George R.R. Martin with his A Song of Ice and Fire series. But I do know that Tolkien's writing style is quite difficult to grasp. But a good way to experience Tolkien's deliciously rich writing style and still have it not be so overbearing is by starting with The Hobbit. Now, The Hobbit is basically a prequel to the Lord of the Rings series, and it follows the journey of Bilbo Baggins, who is Frodo's uncle, as he goes on countless adventures throughout Middle-earth. Now, The Hobbit was primarily written to be a children's book. So while yes, it does have the kind of old English vibe and some kind of complexities of Tolkien's writing, which is there in Lord of the Rings, it is still much simpler. And I feel like it's a great introduction into the world of Lord of the Rings, like all of the lands and the mythical creatures and characters that you will encounter in Lord of the Rings. You do meet some of them in The Hobbit, and I feel it's a very good introduction to step into this complex world. So yeah, a very good place for beginners to start would be to read The Hobbit and then slowly make their way towards the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The next book that I want to recommend is Artemis Fowl by Eoin Colfer. Now, I feel like this is one of the most underrated middle grade fantasy books ever. I remember reading this book when I was much younger, like when I was in school, probably like when I was 13 or 14 years old, and it was so much fun to read. This book follows our main character Artemis Fowl, who is a child prodigy. Like, he is super duper smart, but he's also a criminal mastermind. Now, in this world of Artemis Fowl, there are also these mythical creatures like fairies and dwarves and centaurs who live underground. So being the criminal mastermind that he hatches a scheme to try to kidnap one of them and hold them ransom. I just feel like the premise of this book is so interesting and so unique. Like, I've never read another book which is like this, especially where our main character is first of all just a 12-year-old boy and he's a criminal mastermind. Like, I found that to be so cool. This book is very fast paced. It's very simply written, so it's really easy to get through. And the characters are very funny and quirky, and just the whole world is well developed. So yeah, a really good fantasy book that I feel all beginners should try out because it's a super fun read. The next books that I want to talk about are An Ember in the Ashes series by Sabaa Tahir. Now, this is a fantasy series that is set in a world that is currently ruled by what is known as the Martial Empire. Now, the Martial Empire basically rules all of its citizens with an iron fist. So, of course, there is a resistance that is trying to overthrow this Martial Empire. Our main characters are Laia, who is a part of this resistance, and Elias, who is a soldier for the Martial Empire. And the story kind of just unfurls when the lives of these two main characters intertwine. What I love about this series are its characters. Like, the characters are so well developed, and I feel like all of them have such an important role to play in the series that you just can't help but fall in love with all of them and really, really root for them to succeed. And the world is also very, very well developed with a lot of mythical and like magical elements, and also a lot of political intrigue. Like the politics in this world is very, very interesting. And through the politics, Sabaa Tahir has kind of touched upon topics like slavery and class divide and power imbalances, which I think is very important to the story and just makes the book overall very interesting. And the last book that I want to recommend is Eragon by Christopher Paolini. Now, I feel like Eragon is more maybe intermediate level fantasy, like not because the book is difficult to read, but just because these books, like the books in this series, are quite long. Like each book is about 600 plus pages, which I know can be quite daunting to read. This story basically follows our main character, Eragon, who discovers a dragon's egg. And after he discovers this dragon's egg, basically his life is completely changed, and he goes on a journey to become a dragon rider, to learn magic, and a bunch of things happen along the way. But basically, this book has it all. It has magical kingdoms, it has evil kings, it has dragons, and it has a bunch of mystical and magical characters and creatures that make this world like the perfect fantasy world. And I also feel because these books are long and the writing is kind of tedious but still simple, these books are the perfect stepping stone for you guys to read even more descriptive and more difficult books like The Lord of the Rings and A Song of Ice and Fire series. So yeah, those were my fantasy book recommendations for beginners. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below letting me know what fantasy books you're currently reading, which are your favorite fantasy books. Just leave all the fantasy book love down in the comments below so that we can have a really good discussion. And of course, do subscribe to my channel for more book related videos like this. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.